said so far has been fantastic. I'd add to this my perspective as a journalist. I don't like being called a journalist really, because I'm just a guy who just drinks a lot of wine and likes to write about it. And when I started out, I started out as an amateur with a website, and through that I turned what for me has been just a fun hobby into a way of earning a living. And it's only because of the internet and digital conversation that I've been able to do this. The barrier for entry now has been lowered to the point that anybody can join in. Anyone can play, and that's fantastic, I think. In the past, there was a very different way of communicating. There were the experts, the serious wine journalists, and they spoke down to the consumers. So it was a vertical transmission of information. Now everything has changed. Now it's horizontal, it's a conversation. And I think some of my colleagues have been quicker to realise the importance of engaging with readers and joining in this conversation than others. Some have felt quite threatened by it because it removes this sort of status of the expert. Suddenly you're answerable to everybody who reads you. And if, for instance, I wanted to write a piece on my blog about the Northern Rhone, based on the trip, I can guarantee that there will be 20 or 30 people reading that post who know a lot more than I do, because it's been their life's passion to drink the wines of the Northern Rhone and visit every year. And so I've got to be aware that I'm joining in a conversation here as a journalist. I'm not the expert, and I hate this term of expert. I'm just somebody providing a point of view and then discussing that and engaging with people who read what I'm writing. I'd say a few other things. One thing I think is really important is that there's a wave that's coming, and it's a big wave, and now's a chance to get on this wave. The wine industry is still dominated by the that was a bit Cantonesque, wasn't it? It's sort of like something. Let's backtrack. What I'm saying is that the wine industry is still dominated. Most of the customers for wine and expensive wine are the boomer generation, the people with the money. Now these people haven't really taken up social media and the internet in a big way, and the wine industry at large has been very slow to embrace social media and the internet. And in fact, it's almost ironic that the worst websites you will ever find are winery websites. They're still reliant on flash. They're just totally useless ways of communicating with people. Is that the wine trade has been really reluctant to get engaged with the internet. When I started out on the internet, I realised very quickly that if I was to be taken seriously as a journalist, I'd have to do print as well. And suddenly, when I landed a newspaper column and a book deal, suddenly the PRs were really interested, and I got all the samples and press trip invites. While I was doing the website, even though it was reaching an awful lot of people and being quite influential, it wasn't really on PR's radars. So the wine industry is quite slow to embrace the internet. But if any of you have got sort of teenage kids, and I've got a 13 and 14-year-old, they live their lives through social media. Facebook, look at their internet histories, which I have to check fairly regularly because they're boys and they're 13 and 14. And they're on Facebook all the time, and it's not just the actual postings to Facebook, but the messaging as well. That's how they live their social lives. And now, when this generation turn out to be wine buyers, the wine industry, if it hasn't engaged and communicated on this sort of level, will simply fail to embrace and engage with these people. A couple of other points. First of all, digital conversation generally. As we talk about wine, you're thinking, how many people are we actually reaching as we have these conversations about wine? Are we just talking to ourselves? Is this something that will draw in new consumers? Well, I think the answer is that most consumers of wine out there are non-involved consumers. They drink wine and they enjoy it, but they don't necessarily want to learn about wine. They don't want to read wine books. They're not even that keen about reading the back labels of wine bottles on the shelves. So these people, I don't think, are going to get engaged in the digital conversation about wine. But what I do think is that once people are interested in wine, digital conversation and the internet is incredibly sticky. When I first started getting into wine, it was only really once I got onto the internet and started discussing about wine on bulletin boards with other wine lovers that I really got drawn into wine, and basically I was captured by wine. It was a hobby before, it was a slight hobby, but suddenly with the advent of the internet and the ability to engage with people about the internet and discuss it, and find people who share the same bizarre interests in, Gaiac or strange wine regions, that suddenly this I really became grabbed by wine and drawn into it to the point that it was a very sustainable sort of interest. And so I think while the digital conversation may not draw in outsiders to wine, once people are grabbed by wine a little bit, then the digital conversation has a capacity for us helping them to stick as converts to wine. So I think it's very important, that capacity. And I won't say any more right now because I think it's about time that we had a bit more of an open discussion about this.